Oh my God, what's up, people? A little bit of Freddy in there. We're doing Cujo today, y'all. If you're gonna watch the movie with us, rock it with us. If you're not, that's fine. Hang out. We're gonna talk to you guys. You know, it's a loose show on the Christian Hannah Horror Show, and I'm really excited to have my guest today, my friend Lorne. And first of all, Lorne, how are you doing? And thank you for being here today.
It's always great to see you, man. It's been like ages since we've hung out.
Yeah, guys, if you didn't see it yesterday, we did a horror movie trivia night on Lorne's channel, Visited by Voices 1, and I won, and it was actually really tough, and I was really proud of myself that I won. I really thought I was going to get lambasted on the show, but I did pretty good, so that was really fun. We're going to do more, right? We're going to do more trivia shows, right?
Absolutely, and as the champion, you can return, of course, until you lose.
Well, I'm a one-hit wonder. I am Smash Mouth. You know, I'm.
This is exact. The Smash Mouth had 2 hits, but there's
That-
this is exactly how Christian works. Though he shows up yesterday in the green room and he's like, "Ah, it's been a long day. I don't feel great. I'm gonna do really awful. Don't mind me." And then of course he rocks the night and ends up in 4 digits, whereas everyone else was scraping the bottom of their wallets. So I'm not buying this. I'm one hit wonder nonsense. I think you're gonna be the person to beat.
Well, you know, it's funny. This is no joke. You know, the Slumdog Millionaire thing, like that really was yesterday. The questions that were asked yesterday, there were genuine instances of me. I'm weird. I don't know if anybody in the chat or if Lorne, you're even like this. When I find actors I like, I always IMDb or Wikipedia them and I look up their filmography. And I remember doing Donald Pleasance not long ago because I saw him in that movie Paganini Horror, which did him no favors,
No,
or he
did
or
no
he did
one
the
any
he
favors.
did the movie no favors. And except I like the Bon Jovi ripoff, but I saw Dracula in '79, and for some reason that stuck in my head, and that was a question, like weird stuff like that. That's how I won that game. I mean, it really was. There was so many instances of me just remembering years. We did the Lucio Fulci in '81, so it was fantastic. It was
Yeah,
really
that
fun.
I was really impressed with that quick answer from you because
Yeah.
I was even thinking, is this just too tough? Should I not throw it in here? Because it's like asking for people to know when things were released, and in most cases, that was before you guys were born. So, but you know what? You got it. And actually, that question, I think a lot of people did well on. You were just the one that nailed it.
I think so. Yeah, everybody at least had one. I mean, because and what were we talking about? Fulci, he was stacked in '81. Good God, I mean, three
Three
movies. When
films
you said
released.
that, because I knew it obviously, but when I actually went to go write them down, I was like, good God, 3 movies in a year.
And he
It's
was doing 2 a year as a regular thing. And these are
yeah,
big productions. The funny thing is they're independent, but these are not small productions. These involved a lot of special effects, a lot of atmospherics. There were setups that took all day to get one shot. So the man was a workhorse. I'm glad that his image is kind of being rehabilitated now because for a long time
yeah,
people thought of him as just this gutter, exploitation grindhouse director, and now people are actually looking and saying, no, this guy's actually important to the genre. So that makes me
yep.
very, very happy.
Yeah, absolutely. We love Lucci, and I appreciate you with all the insight and all the recommendations from him. We got Roland 666, John McCullough, Joe Bob Tarhill. That's a familiar. That's a sausage factory name, right? Joe Bob
Yeah.
Tarhill.
Yep.
Andrew's in here. Thank you, Andrew, for being here. Horror fanatic, Savoy 1984. Eric Olson, Sean Senior. Sean Senior, I know you. You watch Pizzle's videos a lot. Austin Wilcutt. Lauren's in the chat right there. Rush's Ashes. I don't recognize your name, but I'm glad to see you here.
He probably followed me over.
Good deal, good deal. And Roland 666. I said your name already, so you got a double nod from me, guys. We're doing Cujo. The reason I asked Lauren to do Cujo with me today, guys, is this right here. On the Sausage Factory, a question was asked. I think it wasn't Stone who asked it. I forgot who asked it. But somebody said, which of these two Stephen King movies did you prefer? And only 2 people on the show picked Cujo. I can't remember what the other one was, but the 2 people you see before you are the 2 people. Let me turn up a little bit. But the 2 people you see before you are the only 2 people that picked Cujo for their win. Do you remember what the other movie was they were comparing? I can't remember.
I'm not sure, but it was probably something like Salem's Lot, and it became an issue where it's like the Toby Hooper fandom like came out and everyone.
There we
Something
go.
like that, though. But I mean, Cujo to me is an improvement over the novel, and we'll discuss that as we go in. It was one of King's admitted cocaine and alcohol novels that he doesn't really remember writing,
Was
and
this during the
he's
maximum overdrive
it's a
days,
couple
right? When
years
he
before. It's a couple years
okay.
before, but I mean, when you have a small town Maine school teacher who was not doing particularly well in his career as a school teacher, who becomes a huge icon in entertainment within just a few years, it's kind of like becoming the rock star overnight. When money's not an object, you kind of explore life at your own pace, and King was exploring it at a pretty fast pace at that moment. He was putting out a lot of books. He was putting out 2 books a year. Um, I think when you look at his output at the time, Cujo is such a great idea for a novel, but it's messy, and it's a short novel, especially by his standards. But it's messy.
Yeah.
The film like pares the story down to what it needs to be, and I have a lot of respect for any screenwriter and any director and any actor who can keep what made the original source material great, but understand its flaws and make a better product. And I think that is exactly what Cujo does.
I haven't read the book, but I dare. There's no way I would disagree with that. Obviously, we're doing this commentary of it, so you know I love it. Um, Guys, if you want to go ahead, I am getting queued up to just 000. Lauren, I've got the Taft Entertainment Company presents on my screen. Is that where you are?
I can be. Give me just another second.
Take your time. Um, hey, Austin Wilcutt, what's going on? Whoever's going to be joining, I hope you guys join us on Cujo because listen to me. This is a good freaking movie. I love Cujo. My dad raised me on Cujo. My dad's a strange cat, but he's a cool cat. My dad raised me on It's Alive. It's his favorite drive-in movie. He used to always tell me, Bubba, there's a scene where there's blood and milk dripping together, and it's the grossest thing ever, and it's so scary. And he loves It's Alive. He loves Cujo. Those are his two favorite. Those are my dad's two favorite horror movies. And it's always funny. I've always told my dad one day I'm gonna get a dog and name him Cujo, but I haven't done it yet. I need to. It's such a cool name. I love the name Cujo. And Lord, this is a Saint Bernard in this movie, right?
It is.
Okay. All right. Well, if you can't, Al, don't worry. We're glad you're here. Lauren, whenever you're ready, I'm ready to get started. We'll do the countdown, and we're going to jump into some
ready.
Cujo. All right. We'll do this. 10 seconds, guys. If you're ready, let's rock it. Borderline just popped in his full-screen DVD from 20 years ago. That's good enough for me. All right. Borderline 11. That's what you're rocking, Lauren?
No, I'm not, but...
Okay, here we go.
I had
10.
that DVD. I wish I
you
still
do?
had it.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure. I've got an old one, too. Here we go, guys. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, Cujo. And I am so excited we're going to be watching this movie. Lauren, I want to ask you a question right off the bat because of the opening scene in this movie. In your opinion, what's the hardest thing to work with? Kids, animals, or a bad script?
Well, you can work with a bad script. You just make a bad film. So I don't like children particularly, so I'll go with children. I like animals. I think that old saying comes from the fact that, on a film set, you have to move quickly. You got to get the shots in. You can't fall behind schedule because if you fall behind schedule, one of two things are going to happen. You end up over budget because you're paying people to stay who are not contracted,
Right.
or you're going to end up not being able to get all the shots that you need for the film, and then you're going to have a film that seems to be missing footage. And we've seen those movies released. So you can't fall behind. And dogs, cats, bunny rabbits, and children are all very unpredictable. They won't necessarily get the scene done in an economic fashion. That's why I always say, when you read the credit directed by, replace that in your mind with managed by.
Right.
Because that's what a director actually does. He actually manages all the departments, and he relies on all his partners, whether it's the art department lead or the director of photography, which is a title that comes up and people go, well, what does that guy do? He's not just the guy behind the camera. He might have a team of 3 or 4 camera operators. Check those at the end credits. You'll see those too. Right. He's the guy who's responsible to make sure that department doesn't fail. So anytime you're working with anything that's a variable that you can't control, your production is hanging by a thread. I don't care how well trained this dog was. I don't think this scene would be filmed this way today. I think that bunny rabbit would be CGI for sure.
Oh, that's what blew me away, Lauren, watching this. And guys, since I love you, Lauren, remind me if there's any kind of... there's no nudity in this movie if memory serves, right?
I think there's what would be best called partial nudity.
When we get, I think I know when. Guys, when we get to that point, I'll turn the camera, but because I love you, you're watching Cujo with us, okay? Just like Return of the Living Dead 2, you're with us. But Lauren, when I watched this for the first time the other day, for the first time in years, I couldn't believe how much I loved this opening scene. I was blown away. I'm no director, but like I know I have bunny rabbits in my backyard. and dude, they're in and out like that. So to think how they did this, I can't fathom it. They had to have had some kind of like they had to have had multiple rabbits to work with, right? Because I'm sure once one gets out and they try to go for something, gone. I
Well,
mean, I can't imagine.
you never have one of anything on a set.
Right.
Every prop is produced in duplicate because something as stupid as the best boy while delivering coffee knocks something over, you need to have a replacement for it. So everything exists in duplicate for a film. So I bet there was more than one dog for that matter, because if the dog's sick that day, you need to
Right.
film.
Right.
So and actually, there's close-ups of the dog's mouth throughout the movie. That's not a German. Is not a Saint Bernard.
Same road, right? And real bats
Because
here, right, Lauren?
they are real bats,
God, they're
probably
freaky
stock
looking,
footage.
dude.
I
Jesus
love them. They're
Christ.
beautiful, beautiful animals. We have bats. When I do when I have a projector and I show movies outside at night, the bats fly over our heads. And they get pretty close. They come down. They're curious. They don't cause a problem, but they get curious. They're very cool. We have one that's pretty big.
All right, Lauren, Lewis Teague. What else do you know about Lewis Teague? Tell us
So
about Lewis Teague.
yeah, so Lewis Teague is an interesting journeyman director. He wasn't a particular horror director, but he did work in the genre. He got his start doing an episode of the Alfred Hitchcock Hour in '64. That was a show that, after Alfred Hitchcock Presents went off the air, was an attempt to bring it back. It didn't really work, and it was a little bit goofier than the earlier incarnation, but he directed an episode of that in its first season, in its first of 1.5 seasons. In 1980, he directed Alligator, which
Alligator.
is a tremendous film that showcased that he could get a film that looked like a big Godzilla-sized monster movie out of a very small budget. After Cujo in '84, he actually stayed with Stephen King and made Cat's Eye, which again is the reason why Cujo is at the beginning of that film. Is a nice segue too.
Are you a
He
fan
made
of
Jewel.
Cat's Eye? I
I
kind of like
like
that
it.
one. Okay,
I
yeah,
like
it's
it.
pretty good.
It should be titled Tales from the Dark Side of the Movie before Tales from the Dark Side of the Movie, but yes.
That's a fair
Um,
assessment.
Jewel of the Nile he made in '85, and that was his big moneymaker. That's the retirement film.
Okay, I
And
haven't
then
seen that.
he did a lot of television work. He made other features, but I just want to point out that I find it hilarious that the man who made Cujo in 1997 made the Dukes of Hazzard reunion movie.
Oh my god,
So,
the hell.
is that a little bit of what you wanted to know about Mr. Teague?
I love it. That's why another reason I thought it'd be great to have you on here, because you could really tell us information about stuff. Because I always have questions, and why go to Wikipedia when I could just ask? We could just ask Lauren, guys.
So
Um,
this scene right
yeah.
now with the closet. This is a
Uh
big
huh.
point. It like first third of the novel is basically about the ghost in the closet that's haunting Tad. Um, and in the book, it may or may not be a real thing, but it seems like it is. And it's actually the ghost of a character named Frank Dodd, who was the sheriff's son in Dead Zone, who was committing murders and that his father was covering up. So Cat's Eye exists in that same Castle Rock continuity. In the movie, smartly, they play it off as just Tad's a sensitive kid because
Okay.
they recognize that it's only going to confuse the audience. And to be honest with you, it's one of the reasons I say the novel's messy, because that never pays off properly.
That makes sense to me, and we won't spoil it yet because I will save it before we get to this part of the film. But it's clearly not the only thing that was changed in this movie. How often do besides The Shining, obviously, how often do Stephen King novels gets swapped around on cinema because it just won't pan out this as well in a book?
Well, all books, when they're called adaptations for a reason.
Right.
They're different formats. For instance, if I'll make a analogy to something a lot more current. You can't
Okay.
really just do Iron Man as the original comic series existed, because you have to update it. It can't be a Vietnam veteran anymore if you want to put it in the modern world. So you had to adapt it. So now it's a kind of Gulf War era conflict that Iron Man was hurt in, right? Same thing happens in film adaptations of books, because you have to adjust for what's going to work visually on screen or with a single line of dialogue. You don't have paragraphs upon paragraphs and mileage upon mileage, which you do in a novel, to tell these stories.
Okay.
So almost in every case there's changes. I mean, some of them are minor, some of them are major. I'll tell you, the one that always annoyed me the worst
What's
is
that?
Mick Garris's The Stand. In the beginning, opening hour, they condensed two characters into one character in order to just streamline a segment of the movie, which doesn't seem like a huge deal, except that then when we get to the Mother Abigail scenes, they kept everything. And to me, that center portion is just long. Give me the exciting stuff during the plague. Keep all of that
Yeah.
before you. Yeah. So, and then there's things like Graveyard Shift, which doesn't really resemble its source short story really pretty much at all.
I do like that movie. That's a fun little schlocky, B horror movie
Yeah,
to me.
yeah, it just doesn't really have anything to do with King, really.
Oh man.
But even Dead Zone has differences from the novel. In that case, and I know this is going to be controversial, I like
What's
the
that?
novel more than Cronenberg's adaptation. And I know you're never supposed to talk down about Cronenberg, and I usually don't because I do love his output. But I do think the novel is a little bit more emotionally resonant than the cold fish that Cronenberg put on screen.
I can't even remember if I've seen
Dead
The
Zone?
Dead Zone. I can't remember. Maybe not.
So this scene here is supposed to be showing what the domestic situation is like for the family. And it's an important scene because it seems normal on the surface level, but it's going to be revealed that a whole lot's going on underneath
Right.
at the same time. And that's what the movie's really about. This is a movie about two parents who are both not taking responsibility for their child. That's what the movie is about. They're both still trying to be who they were at 20.
That's what Go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, in different ways. The dad, you'll notice, is too driven at work, and he's spending too much time at work. He's almost an absentee dad in a lot of ways. And mom, obviously, as is going to be revealed in a moment, I'll just say this: she's having an affair.
She's looking for affection elsewhere because she's not getting it.
Right, but that's something you do at 21 with your first girlfriend or boyfriend, your first real situation. You don't do it when you have a kid, right? So their neglect of their parental responsibilities ultimately will manifest in the form of a rabid Saint Bernard. But the whole idea is that the dog is contaminated just the same way the family is contaminated, the same way the cereal is contaminated. If you think about it, the dad's
Raspberry zingers.
That artificial sweetener that's causing kids to get sick. The father has allowed the food to become contaminated. The kids are getting sick. The movie is about the sins of the parents who just refuse to take responsibility the way the generation before them did.
Yeah. You see,
that's my little autopsy for you.
See, in my review too, Lorne, I didn't let the guy, the friend of the husband that's having the affair, I didn't let him slide. I was like, this guy's scummy too because he has no care that he's hurting his friend and he's hurting this marriage. Not that he's forcing the wife to go to bed with him, but still, you got a sense of responsibility. I think everybody was screwing up in all directions in this movie, but that's what I loved about the story. I really did.
There's a line from the Sex Pistols that always encapsulated that character to me, which is, "I don't work, I just paint." And it's that kind of selfishness. I just want to do my art. You're just too precious about life.
Right.
So D. Wallace Stone is amazing in this film because she's not asked to do anything easy the whole runtime. Everything has impact. Everything has weight. Obviously, she's an amazing actress. To horror fans, of course, we know her from The Stepford Wives in '75 and The Hills Have Eyes, E.T., which I loathe as a film. But she's quite good in Critters.
She's
Alligator 2: The Mutation.
Yeah.
So we go back to Alligator.
I think this is the best movie I've seen her in terms of what she does, and she agrees. She actually said this was one of the most. She liked it, but she said she worked her butt off in this movie.
But she was also in Popcorn and The Frighteners and House of the Devil and Three from Hell. So she stayed pretty consistently working in the genre through the years. And she doesn't hide from it. She does conventions.
Paycheck for her, huh?
Yeah.
I mean, she didn't do nothing too crazy in Popcorn.
No. I mean, she was Mark K value. Hey, look, we have someone you recognize from that other movie.
Everybody in the chat, what is your favorite Stephen King? I guess what are some of your favorite Stephen King movies? It's always interesting to see the answers because there's not always the. I guess The Shining is a popular one, but what is everybody's favorite? Mine's Children of the Corn. That's always going to be my favorite Stephen King movie. I love. What is yours, Lorne?
My favorite Stephen King. Did you say story or movie?
Adaptation, whatever. If it's a movie based on his novel, mine is Children of the Corn. I love that one. I love the movie. I haven't read the book.
Um, this is so tough. I think like those first 5 films based on his work are all really, really good, and then it gets iffy for a while, and then it gets really hard once they all become television adaptations with television budgets. I think ultimately I might end up a Shining guy or a Carrie guy. I think that's probably where it's going to end up.
Yeah, people love Carrie. I know that.
I love Carrie. I mean, the De Palma film.
Right.
There's no better coming of age horror film that turns into a incredibly nasty adolescent fantasy. I love it, and every change in that movie is way superior to the book because De Palma understood how film works.
Who was the guy that takes Carrie to the dance? He's Roger Cobb, but I forget his
William
his
Catt.
real name. I love
William
Catt.
The greatest American hero.
He just like on screen, he's effortless. He's one of those, to me, he's like one of those effortless actors that just, I don't know, it's almost like he's just got that. I can't put it into words. I just love seeing him in movies. Whenever I see him, I'm always like, oh, I'm in for a good treat. I like William. Except in House 4, I mean, that movie was just plain
he's
bad.
not in a lot of House 4.
No, he wasn't. That broke my heart.
Does everyone? Well, do you know the story behind House 4?
No.
Why it exists?
No. How does House 4 exist?
So House 4 exists because in the overseas markets, the horror show did really, really, really well. Called House 3 overseas, especially in the Spanish, Italian markets and Greece. So a lot of foreign money started flowing back saying, we want a 4th chapter. But no American distributor wanted a part of it because horror show did not do well in America. And it became confusing. Like, House 4, where was House 3, right?
Right.
So foreign money got attached and, Cunningham went in producing it thinking, okay, I have this much money. What he didn't realize is that basically foreign economies can change overnight. And what they budgeted out the film, they scored out the film, but they scored it out based on the money they would have coming in. It all wasn't sitting in a bank account. So the value of the money coming in changed under their feet. Oh, and they had to find cheap ways to do everything. And it ended up premiering on cable. It's not a good project. It was just cursed.
It broke my heart. It really did, because I loved House 3. That's my favorite house. And I it's funny, I don't see people. Well, I say that it's got its fans, but man, I keep saying, guys, wait, like I'm telling you, just don't stop it too. Lance friggin' Henriksen is in that movie, and it's my shocker. Yeah, it's my shocker. I tell people, and they're like, "What do you mean?"
Way better than Shocker.
I'm like, man, it's I was like, dude, it's literally like the movie Shocker, except it's got a good runtime. Shocker is, I'm okay with a Shocker, but it's too long. It's just way too long.
I agree with
for
that.
me.
And you can feel
an hour and 40. It's like an hour and 30 minutes or something like that. It's just long.
And it's a
I'm
3-act
just like, man, that's my Shocker.
Yeah, Shocker's a 3-act screenplay that you can tell exactly where one act ends and begins, and it changes completely as a movie. The rules change. It's I'm sorry, it's a mess. I know no one likes talking shit about Wes Craven except for me, but man.
Well, it's such an interesting movie because I think it was produced by Shep Gordon, which is a big music producer, guys. I know he was Alice Cooper's, still to this day, manager, and Desmond what's his name?
Desmond Child?
Desmond Child he was producer in terms of like the soundtrack, although Dave Mustaine kicked him out of the studio, but which his mix is way better. Mustaine's mix, I think, is better than Desmond's that he did for the Alice Cooper cover they did. But it's just a really interesting movie in terms of it's just odd. It's produced by Alice Cooper's agent, Wes Craven signed on to do the gig, and it's too long. But it's got its fans. That's awesome. But I'm telling you guys, House 3 is like my shocker because I just love it more, way more entertaining to me.
We should have
And
gotten.
it's called the Horror Show in America, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
we should have
Austin
gotten.
says the Horror Show.
We should have gotten Max Jenke sequels as continuing 80s character, because all the characters who came out that wanted the Freddy throne, he was the one that probably had a chance at it if he'd been given a little bit of room.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, hold on, Lauren. Somebody said something. I want you to see what they were thinking. I think it was Lost Cunningham. Lost said, just interesting. I can't comment on this, but he says he always thought Cujo wasn't rabid, but was possessed by Frank Dodd.
Yeah, so it's like I said, it's a messy novel, and that's the first third of the novel kind of sets it up that that's gonna be the case.
Right.
But because the metaphor is there too about the collapsing family, it's like King never really connected the dots. And I haven't read the novel in many, many years, but I remember it always being kind of a frustrating novel because the first half is so different than the second half.
And what year did the novel come out?
I believe 81.
Oh, so this movie was made pretty fast afterwards. So it must have been a pretty good selling book then.
Oh, and everything King produced in the period was, huge bestsellers, huge.
Right.
And that led to something unfortunate, which is that he continued that pace. And no one. I'm sorry, no one bats 1,000. No one.
Well, Lauren, it was probably, I'm ignorant to how that worked in a sense, but it was probably like the record companies back then, right? It's like, hey, this album's selling. Let's get you in the studio. We got to follow this up. Was it the same for King? Was it like, all right, let's go. Crank out your next one. Let's go. This one sold well. Let's follow it up. Let's keep you in people's minds. Was it the same way back then?
There's a little bit of pressure on that in the book business, but the book business has always been about, hey, we want this book to sell for 18 months because you're at your level of writing and popularity, you should be able to suffer that. So they used to promote a book for months and months and months and months. That's not how it is now. Now they want to know what you're going to sell in the first 5 weeks, and they consider it's going to be a dead project. But back then you had months and months. But I think the idea was simply that he was so big and you knew the money was there and he didn't have to just work a day job anymore. He was not doing the school teacher business. So I think he just spent his time writing and making the money. He probably thought that after a few novels, the sales were going to fall off, and he wanted to have made as much in a short period of time as he could have. I don't think anyone would have guessed that, 40 years later, they're adapting all of your classic material, and your new books are still bestsellers, though they're not selling a fraction of what his book sold even 2 decades ago.
Hey, Movie Freak 688 says, "Hey everyone, haven't seen Cujo in forever. I remember liking it." Well, Movie Freak, I watched it a week ago and I fell in love with it. It was just like I remembered as a kid, and the difference was, as a kid, Movie Freak, it scared the crap out of me. But as an adult, I have a feeling of helplessness, because when we get to the final act, it's so sad seeing this beast in front of this mom and child, and I can't do anything. So it's a different emotion that I got, but still the same intensity. And Anilda says Dee Wallace was the mom in lots of horror movies. I mean, she really was. Wasn't she in E.T.? She was the mom in E.T., right?
She was the mom in E.T.
God, she's done some big freaking movies.
So let's talk about the deleted scene in E.T. Does everyone know?
Yeah, go ahead.
Does everyone know about the pervy E.T. scene that was cut from E.T.? So it was filmed. It exists as stills, but of course Spielberg's very careful about his deleted scenes. Yeah. So there's a sequence in which E.T. comes into the mom's bedroom, and she's sleeping for some reason basically topless, but she's lying head face down, and he slowly pulls back the cover to reveal part of her back, and you're like, ugh. And apparently that was the whole scene. Didn't go any further than that, but it's like, think about E.T.'s fingers, and it's just, yeah.
Imagine if that would have been in the theater. You think
I
people went across the street to go see the thing instead? Maybe that would have changed.
I've told this story before, but my grandmother used to take my sister and I to the movies pretty much whenever we wanted. E.T. was like the biggest thing out there, and we went, and I hated the movie. I was bored. I thought E.T. looked like a puppet, which he does look like a puppet. And I was just not invested at all when he dies on the table in the house. Spoilers for one of the most overwatched films ever. When he dies on the table in the house after the soldiers come in, I literally got up from my seat because I was like, it's pretty full theater. We should go, right? Beat him out so we can get home. I didn't give a crap. And I looked over, and my sister and my grandmother are both crying their eyes out, and I'm like, what? And then it's kind of like when, have you ever been in a public park and you see a log and you see one big fire ant on it, and you look and then you realize that the whole thing's covered, but at first you only saw one ant? Well, it was like that because then I looked a little bit wider and everyone in the theater was crying. I was like the only one, and I was 9. I hate the film.
It's been a while since I've watched E.T.
Cheese.
I'd actually prefer, what's that John Carpenter movie he did around that same time? Like wasn't it an alien type movie with Jeff Bridges? Um, I like that movie. I'd rather watch that.
Oh,
What was it called? Starman.
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 Yeah, it's all right.
I'd watch that over E.T. at this point. I've seen it enough, I guess, in my life. I don't have the need, not the need, the desire to ever want to really revisit it. It's funny though because when you look at the design of it, it does seem so like B movie. Like the design of ET, it seems so B movie. it's it's pretty jarring. As big as it was. But then again, how many times does Spielberg ever really do sequels? I was gonna say it was surprising he never did a sequel to ET. But then again, I mean, how many instances does he really do sequels?
Lost World. Jurassic
Yeah,
Park
that's true.
2.
Yeah, Jurassic Park. I guess. Well, he produced. I don't like giving him any credit for Back to the Future. I mean, besides his name, what did he really
Zemeckis
do?
all the way.
Of
I mean,
course.
I'm not the biggest Back to the Future fan, but I'll tell you that film just feels like Zemeckis forward and back. It doesn't feel like Spielberg to me.
Yeah. And then who was the writer that helped him? Was that Bob Gale? His name, I
It was
think.
Bob
I think
Gale.
it was Bob Gale.
Not a particularly
Yeah.
great human being, according to Crispin Glover, but
Oh, you have to tell me if Drew's watching. He loves Crispin, so he's gonna want to hear this. What
no.
happened?
Well, when they went to go make the sequel, they couldn't come to an arrangement. Oh, depending on who you talk about, either financially or there was elements of the screenplay that Crispin didn't like. Crispin felt that it was pro corporate, or whatever, or if according to the producers, they just couldn't come up with the money that Crispin wanted, so they recast the role for the sequel. But they did
Stop
a
real
couple
quick. Hold
things.
on. Didn't they was the girlfriend? Because I'm pretty sure that the girlfriend was in the first movie only too, and they recasted her in the sequels as well.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think
So
that's probably a money thing.
it very well might be. I mean, I'll tell you about my run-in with Crispin Glover, which is not glowing either. But
Please,
oh, I will in a
please tell
second. But
us
let me
about
finish this.
meeting
Let me
Crispin.
finish this. Let me finish this.
Okay, okay.
He but what they did is they used the technology at the time to use Crispin Glover's image in the film in Back to the
Yeah, when
Future
he's
2
upside down.
without permission, and Crispin Glover sued them for it because in
Oh my
America you
God.
own your bodily image and reputation.
It-
And apparently Bob Gale was going around making a lot of like really incendiary claims about that. And now eventually Zemeckis and Glover would work together again on Beowulf, so those two are okay now. But Bob Gale, who I believe is no longer with us, never made peace with Crispin.
All right, let's talk about you and Crispin now.
So I went to go see a screening of What It Is Part 2, which is one of
Uh-huh.
Crispin's films. A word of warning about if you ever do decide to go see a Crispin Glover film, they do contain both real animal death and hardcore pornography in most cases. But I went
How
to go
does
see
he
a
laugh?
screening in a real movie theater of this thing, and Crispin came in and he introduced it in his awkward, kind of introspective way, very Crispin Glover. And then he took questions out afterwards, and he was talking to people, and then he did a meet and greet sign. If you brought something, he'd sign it. So I had my Friday 4 poster, and I was ready to go.
Uh-oh.
And he talked about Friday 4. He was not embarrassed of it during the Q&A.
Okay.
And then, but here's the thing. He was spending seriously 15 minutes with absolutely everyone in line. So it was like hours and hours and hours. And it was I don't know, 3 o'clock in the morning by the time I got up to him. And I
Yeah.
got up to him and I unreeled the Friday 13th Final Chapter poster. And as he's writing in in like block letters his name. That's because that's how he signs. He doesn't. It's not a signature. It's like big block letters. He's like, it's a really fun movie, but I don't know why they made Jason Voorhees the protagonist of the series. And I said, well, they didn't really make him the protagonist. It might come off that way, but he's still in a villain capacity. He goes, oh no, he has a traditional hero's journey. He's always chasing the golden chalice, which is those nubile female campers. And he went through this whole spiel about it, trying to make it a traditional, hero's journey for Jason Voorhees, which is just patently absurd. For one thing, there wasn't that kind of thought going into the character. He was more like a shark in Jaws. You go in the water, you're gonna get bit. That's it.
Yeah,
That's Jason Voorhees. All the rest of it's window dressing. And I said that, and he started getting upset. He's like, no, you just don't understand. You don't understand how stories are told. You don't understand anything about modern fiction.
You don't, Lorne.
I don't. And then this click went in my head. From because you can't be like just kind of berated by a person you really respect and not get angry at first. So I was getting, and then I was like, Crispin Glover is spitting nonsense about dramatic structure to me. This is the best day ever. So I ended up laughing, and we shook hands, and we took photos and stuff. But it was definitely not the experience you'd want, but it's definitely memorable. Like, which I guess is what you want out of Crispin Glover.
I always wondered if that Letterman deal was staged or not, where he did that kick on him.
Well,
I think I'd like to think it was staged because there was a great moment with Jerry the King Lawler and one of the greatest comedians, Andy Kaufman, and that was staged. But I don't know if the Glover thing was staged because he's a wild cat.
Well, he showed up on the show in character as a character from his album, his record.
Oh,
so he's not even portraying Crispin Glover in there. And he tells the story he starts to tell a story, and he gets cut off by Dave about a clown, which is what leads to the song Clown, Clown, Clowny on the album. That was released by Restless Records. That was, I don't think Dave was in on the joke. I think he was legitimately pissed, but Crispin was doing the Crispin Glover thing. But by the way, that album that Crispin released, Crispin, Helly, and Glover, it was released by Restless Records. Restless Records was an imprint of Enigma Records, because Enigma Records had a distribution deal with Capitol, but Capitol didn't want everything they put out. They wanted the commercial side. They wanted the Poison. They wanted the Dead Milkmen. They wanted that sort of thing. Restless was all of their stuff that was a little bit too underground. Now, now Enigma Records famously put together the soundtrack for The Return of the Living Dead.
Right.
So it all comes back to the genre at all times. Joe Bob Tarhill asks, which is worse, Lauren, Crispin Glover or Zach Ward? Zach Ward, because I didn't walk away from that table smiling and laughing and thinking about the absurdity of it. Zach Ward had a sign on his table that said $40 for a signature, which for Zach Ward is already too much. But I have I'm a big fan of the 1994 film The Club. I don't know if you've seen it. Kim Coates is in it. When I met Kim Coates and had him sign the poster, he told me this 20-minute story about being set on fire on the film. So I'm very proud of the poster, and I was like, okay, I'll pay the $40 to get Zach Ward to sign it. I come up and he goes, oh, no. And I thought it was about the poster. I'm like, oh, he's going to disown this movie? Really? He goes, no, for things this big, it's $50.
Oh.
And I started rolling the poster up. As I was rolling the poster, I'm like, because everyone was just getting glossies off the table for him. He's not the kind of guy that you're collecting off a poster, right? And I start rolling up, and they're like, well, what's the matter? What, you're not going to do it? You're not going to do it? And I'm like, no, it's 40 I do. And I was even questioning that. and so I start walking away. Oh, come back. So he signed it for 40, but it was a process. And by the way, I walked right up because there was no line all day. All day.
Of course. Yeah.
So, you'd think at least people would get Freddy versus Jason stuff, but it wasn't happening.
I'm really fortunate that I haven't had a bad convention Um, I haven't had a bad convention. You know, everybody under the sun told me Tom Savini is a jerk. The guy, I walked up to him. He gave me a hug, and I see him. I mean, he recognizes me. I'm sure he recognizes a lot of people. But I go every year, and he's there every year. He gave me a hug. He. I tried to give him his money, and one time he just said, "Just do you have 10?" Because he was charged 20. He goes, "Just give me 10, man. Just give me 10. That's fine." And he's always been so freaking kind to me, and I always wonder, like, not that I'm giving him a pass if he has been, cruel and mean to some people, but I know that the guy was raising like a grandson of his own or something. He said this on a documentary one time, and I just remember, maybe he has stuff that goes on in his life, and he does these conventions often. Maybe he's just got some really crappy stuff going on when he's doing these conventions, and it's not just him. I mean, now the Feldman character wearing the Michael Jackson glove at the table, shaking people's hands. That's just weird, I mean, unless you sold, what, 80 million records. I don't think you can do that, buddy. But I don't know. I'm happy that I had a really great time every time I see Tom Savini. I can't fathom him being really mean to anybody. Have you? I'm sure
I've
you've seen Tom
I've never had a
multiple.
bad experience with him. I had one case where he was clearly just tired
Not in
and
it.
done,
Yeah.
but he was not mean or anything. He wasn't. Now the reputation is, of course, that if a young attractive woman walks up, she gets treated really well, and the guy right behind him gets crap. But I never have had that experience. In fact, I went to a showing of his remake of Night of the Living Dead, a film I have very
Oh
mixed
my
feelings
God.
about. But it was being played at
You'll you'll come
a
around.
I'm not sure I will. But it was being played at a very old movie palace in Mount Ephraim, New Jersey, by Exhumed Films, who are still in business to this day and are hopefully opening their own space soon to show films. And I was standing outside with a lobby card from the original Friday the 13th of Brenda's body being thrown through the window.
Right.
And he comes walking up the street because there's street parking there. There's no lot. He comes walking up. He's just walking. He walks and he beelines to me. And he goes, "I got to tell you a story about that." I'm like, "Okay." And he picks it up and he signs it to me right then. And he goes, "That's me. That's me going through the window." They didn't have anyone to do it. So Tasso picked me up and threw me through the window.
See, that's amazing. So, but I've heard stuff about this. Savini was kind of somewhat of a I guess a tool man in a sense, right? Like he was able to do these stunt type things. He was able to get his hands dirty in film, so to speak.
So yeah, I mean, he was a stuntman. He was an actor. He would choreograph sword fights because he was a professional fencer at one point. He was a physical guy. He was a veteran, obviously.
Right.
So he would go up to a director and say, you know that the way you shot that shootout scene wouldn't happen. And maybe the director took his advice or not, but he was always trying to help make the film.
Right. Right.
I think what happened with Savini, and the reason he doesn't want to do makeup effects as a career, is that the industry got really big under him. And you started having all these other folks come in and win Academy Awards for their monsters and get kind of like mainstream acceptance. And he was still thought of as the gore guy. And I think
That's
that gets
true.
tiring. And it just he wasn't getting the old age makeup for Academy Award projects like a Rick
Right.
Baker or a
Who
whoever.
did the?
He
Yeah. Go ahead. I was gonna say the guys that on the fly. They won. They won.
Wallace.
Some. They won. Was it an Oscar for best makeup effects?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember
And
that.
and if you look, I don't think Savini was even ever nominated.
I don't think he was. Not for the caliber. Well, excuse me. No, I shouldn't say caliber. Not for the just the horror movies he was doing. I guess so to speak. You know.
But I'd say to answer to your bigger thing, I've had far, far, far more good experiences than bad. The only thing that gives me pause now is that the pricing to have these 3-minute meet and greet situations at a convention where you're standing in line and you're just the next in line is getting to be to the point where it's too high for me to justify unless I really care.
Yeah, that's true. And I'm more concerned with just the picture. I wish I could just do a charge for that as well instead of an autograph. Autographs don't really mean a whole lot to me. It's really more. I mean, some of them are special. Like I have Steve Dash now. God rest him. He passed. But it's more me. I can say I met Ted White, and that's really cool. I love having the picture. I'll make it my background on my phone or my computer, and it's really cool. I love meeting them. Who
Do you
was
want
it
to
that
do
said?
you want to hear my
Go ahead.
Ted White story?
Oh, well, real quick, I just want to say Borderline 11 said Chris Sarandon was nice. That is somebody who's on my bucket list. Chris is one of my favorite actors. I love Chris Sarandon. He's got a. I'm dying to meet Chris Sarandon. And River asked, "Will there be horror conventions again one day?"
Yes.
I'm sure. I think Texas Frightmare is still scheduled for September, and I'll be going. So, um, sure.
So when I met Ted White, I walk up to him with the Friday 4 poster, and he looks at it and goes, "Uh-huh." He signs it, and he has a big, thick signature, right?
Right,
And he goes,
right.
right, and looks back and go, you know, I know when you made this film, it wasn't what you considered the highlight of your career by any means, but if you look around this room, you've made a whole lot of people extraordinarily happy. He goes, yeah, isn't that fucked up?
Oh man, that's funny. Here's
So
actually I have this right here, guys. That is my Ted White autograph. And
that's good.
I asked him. This is my icebreaker, Lorne. And whenever people ask me about conventions, I tell them the same thing. They're like, "What do I say when I get up there?" Like, what do I do? Like, I'm nervous. I say, this is what I say every time, and it has never failed me. Because I'm always, just walking up and saying hi, it's always awkward. Because what if the other person doesn't know how to really communicate very well? I always walk up to the table, and I say, when they look at me, say, how you doing? I say, hey, help me pick one of these because I really like all these pictures and I'm having trouble. And that's always the icebreaker that works because they're like, oh, and Ted was like, that's the one where I was trying to grab that little bastard. So why don't you do that? That's exactly what happened when he did that.
That's awesome.
When I met Steve, it was so funny. I was just joking with him. I was like, Steve, where's Warrington? Is he gonna do any convention? He goes, he better not ever show up around here. And he really like kind of said it mad. Like I don't like. I believe there is legitimate heat over that. Maybe not so much now, but maybe not so much then. Excuse me, when he was still around as he was an older man. But I do believe there was probably legitimate heat. Why else wouldn't Warrington show up at any of those? Because I'm sure he'd still be asked. You know?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm just gonna take a quick aside before I respond to that, but Borderline 11, I'm completely jealous you've met Barbara Steele because that's my one big get that has slipped through my
Oh,
fingers.
I'm just seeing that. Yeah.
Um, I, I even was trying to figure out how to get out to Crypticon to meet her this year, but no, and it's not gonna happen now. That's the reality. It's just gonna
I
be a
want to
missed
meet Terry
opportunity.
Kaiser.
Oh, he's been at so many around me.
I want to meet Jackie Earle
um,
Haley too, but not because of Nightmare on Elm Street. He's done some. He's a class actor to me. I love Jackie Earle Haley. I would love to meet him. But I'd
so
probably get him to sign a Nightmare on Elm Street picture still.
so Borderline 11 says worst Lou Ferrigno. Let me tell you a Lou Ferrigno story. Not about me meeting him. Lou Ferrigno's brother had a store in Warren County where he sold exercise equipment, and Lou sued his brother because he claimed that Ferrigno's sporting goods or whatever it was called was infringing on his copyright, and the judge ruled that he could not have green anywhere on the building.
Jesus Christ.
So there you go.
Oh man.
So the movie now has gone into its second act. So we have the characters, we have everything aligned, and we're
Right.
about to whittle down to our core situation that everything that's come before has led to. Again, if you look at the family dynamics, the mechanics family are not okay either, but they're very honest about the fact that they're not okay. Whereas our main family is kind of living this denial, trying to give up the presentation of still being this just normal all American family, and they're not. And that's really what the movie is saying is we have to confront this, that the family's falling apart in America in the mid 80s.
Right. And here's the this is what I talked about in my review. Here's the mom saying, "I'm not worried about the dog. You better not let your dad know because he's a drunk, and if he gets mad, he's gonna beat both of our butts." And that's
Mm-hmm.
just a sad commentary on, because man, I tell you, I live in the country, and anybody watching this that does live in the country, I can't tell you how many. This is one of the most. This gets under my skin more than anything in the freaking world. When when sometimes when these dogs are about to have babies, they dump the dogs on the side of the road, and my dad has a big he has a bunch of property, just a couple acres behind his house, and and one day when I was still living with my parents, I kept hearing whining in the backyard, and then we have a shed that's on cinder blocks, and I went under there by the shed, and it was a mutt dog, and she was having babies, and some piece of crap dumped the dog on the side of the road as to not have to deal with the babies because, as you know, out of sight, out of mind. And it's just that's what makes me so mad, and that's what made me mad in this movie was just like, dude, you got this kid saying my dog, something's wrong with my dog, and the mom is more concerned, with not not upsetting her drunk husband. And it's a sad commentary. Like that's one of the most important things I personally took away from this movie. You know, it's almost like this is what y'all get. Cujo said, "You ain't taking me to the vet. I'm gonna kill everybody." But I love this kill scene right here, and I wonder what did they put on this dog at this point, because he looks like he's covered in tar. Like he looks like Jason Takes Manhattan is what he looks like. He looks slimy and tarry, and
So
you
I
know,
know that the foam is milk and glycerin.
oh,
So,
I
and
love
they
this
had a
kill
problem because the
scene.
dog loved it. So they kept applying it because it kept licking it off. They also tied down the dog's tail because it loved doing these scenes and it would be wagging its tail all the time, and that doesn't look good on a film on film if you're supposed to be afraid of the dog. So they actually tied its tail down.
Right. See, a
Now,
lot of these scenes, I bet these actors had to really just act to nothing, and some of the dog shot. You saw this shot where the guy right here, he's like on all fours on top of the stairs, like grunting and yelling. He had to have been grunting and yelling at nothing, and the dog shots had to have been added after the fact, right? Because I mean, you can't
yeah,
control
I
that
mean,
kind of.
yeah, they were probably shot the same day, but they were shot separately because it's easier to
Now,
match
yeah.
the lighting if you do it the same day.
Now, Lauren, are you like me? Here's this rabid dog, right, that needs to be stopped, but the second he goes for that gun, I'm all Cujo. I don't want him, I want Cujo to win. You can't hurt a dog. Like that's against the rules
Now,
for
you
me.
see,
Rabbit or not.
we're going to be very different here. I'm such a strong advocate of film as fantasy
Uh huh.
that I'm not of the group that say, "Oh, you can kill 70 people, but if you kill one animal, I'm upset." It's all fantasy to me. I don't. I
That's
do not
fine.
have any particular problem with. Now, if it's
I have no problem being hypocritical. I really don't.
if it actually is advocating for harming animals or treating them inhumanely, that I have a problem with that. But that doesn't immediately rule things out either. Like especially with these older movies where things were just different. I don't think this film really does anything that's horrible. But you go back far enough, you don't even have to look to Cannibal Holocaust. You can look to the other studio picks, whereas your Milo and Otis's,
Right.
out of Japan, whereas they just threw a cat off a cliff to get the scene, you know, and that was okay and acceptable to people back then.
Right.
So
Right.
we've come a
Somebody had.
long way.
Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, we've come a long way, and all I'd say is when it's fantasy and faked, I'm fine with anything.
Austin said he heard Linda Blair gets upset when people have her sign Exorcist 2 stuff. I can't imagine who.
So
I
if
mean,
you really want to piss her off, hand her something from Caged Heat.
what is that again?
Hand her something from Caged Heat. She'll get really pissed off. If those
Lauren,
of you who don't know, Caged Heat is her infamous woman in prison film.
I haven't seen that.
Oh, you need to see it immediately.
Sounds like she probably would look good in it, though. I'm
It
assuming,
is
right?
everything
Or
you've
is it?
ever wanted to know about Linda Blair is on screen in that movie,
Okay, that sounds good to me.
and Sybil Danning, and you'll greatly enjoy it.
Nocturnal Toothbrush. First of all, Nocturnal Toothbrush. I saw you said everybody give the stream a like if you can. Yeah, I forgot to say that. If you can, guys, please give the stream a like. He did ask, has anybody pre-ordered the Dawn of the Dead 4K set? I did, but I'm thinking now of getting that Arrow release instead. Thoughts? I didn't buy the I didn't buy that set because not because I don't like physical media. Obviously, as you can see, I got a bunch of movies, but it's not a movie that I was down to pay that kind of price because I just know that if I got the set, I would watch the movie once, and I'm not sitting down and watching every cut of the movie. I'm just not doing. Granted, when I get Nightbreed, I always tell myself, Christian, just do theatrical. I don't have time for the director's cut. Plus, the director's cut I think makes a little bit more of a love story, which I don't like. Personal preference. But if I know that if you're a fan of Dawn of the Dead, if you're a fan, you'll have everything your heart will ever have desired. So that's all I got to say about that. Um, that Arrow Blu-ray is cool. I'm still rocking my Divamax DVD because apparently, what happened, Lorne? That the guy who has the rights, he wants his money basically. If anybody's gonna put the movie out,
I'm not sure if anyone really knows what's going on with Rubenstein, but
that's his name.
he's not exactly forthcoming about those rights. I think it's not a matter of him not wanting to license it. I think he just wants massive money to license it. And
Right, right.
it might be too that he wants to license as packages, which happens a lot. So he might want you to buy not only Dawn of the Dead, but Martin, Season of the Witch, anything else that he owns under that umbrella. And it might just be just Romero films. It might be films outside that he owns the rights to, and he wants you to take it all on. That's kind of common. Um, Listen, Dawn of the Dead is one of those movies that I get that everyone loves, and I like it a lot, but it's fucking boring, people. It is a boring movie to me, and I'm just not okay paying. What is it? $60 for the full? Is it? How much is
No,
that
it's
set?
it's expensive. It's I believe it's about one. I'll be conservative because I'm not sure. I think it's maybe 120 for the Blu-ray and 130 for the 4K. They're coming out simultaneously. So, if you're a fan, just devil's advocate, if you're a big fan in America, getting the 4K would make more sense because the Blu-ray you have to be region B, but you have to really love the film, I think, to drop that coin. Now, granted, let's say for some reason somebody ever put out like a Day of the Dead version of that. Granted, I don't know how much footage or what I haven't seen. I'm a much bigger Day of the Dead fan, so I would entertain something a little bit more uh, high end for a movie like that. But Dawn of the Dead, I'm perfectly fine with it. But Day of the Dead is my Romero Dead film. Besides Night, Day is my Dead film.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah. I can't justify more than $30 for Dawn of the Dead on a good day, and $30 I'd even be looking at myself, to be
Yeah.
honest.
All right, Crystal Lake Counselor. He says, Christian, make a collector's argument to why Lorne should pick up the 40th anniversary steelbook of Friday
Yeah,
the 13th.
let's see if you can sell this
I
on me.
Well, this is the problem, Lauren. I have no argument. I'm always pretty transparent. When I get the Blu-ray, if it comes in a day or so, I will show it off because I really love collecting stuff Friday the 13th. But I will say, if you're unless you're a collector, guys, this isn't necessary. It's just a fun little piece that's a steelbook. But if you're only interested in any in terms of content, you don't need this. Like that's what I'm gonna say. Now I think if Lauren ever goes to a pawn shop or something one day and he sees it for a few bucks, if somebody brings it up, I think I could see Lauren saying, you know what, screw it. I might get this for fun. It's cheap. But I don't think Lauren's gonna go out of his way to get it because he has no shortage of the film in terms of how he can watch it. I'm sure of, right.
Yeah,
I
you can
mean,
only
and
watch
there's
one
nothing wrong
copy at
with
a
that.
time. You can
Yeah.
only watch one. Now, here's my deal. If they release the film on 4K, I have to make a decision there. And I'd probably wait for some reviews because I'll be honest with you, special effects heavy films sometimes don't benefit from that kind of detail.
Yeah, but you could
But
argue that
Friday,
just on the Blu-ray itself, man. If you really sit there and watch those scenes, especially the
yeah.
scene in the beginning when the girl's neck is cut,
Oh,
the
yeah,
paint
you can
job.
definitely, well, you can definitely see where the makeup ended,
Right,
which you
right.
couldn't see in earlier copies. You probably couldn't see in the theatrical.
I doubt
But
it. Yeah.
truth is, uh, 4K is great for films that were curated with the idea of it being something that was going to last 50 years. For small independent exploitation films, it probably is overkill and might even hurt the films, in my opinion. But listen, the Hellfest disc is one of the best looking films on video. So 4K has its place in the genre. It's just maybe not with all of our favorite older films.
Well, it's giving it the right toys to play with. I think 4K gets better coloring, so that's why I'm sure the Suspiria. Eventually, I
Looks
may say,
great.
you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and break down and get it. But don't get me wrong, my 4K scan of Blu-ray looks phenomenal, you know. But I'm sure the 4K even is it has to be even better. But Hellfest is a good example because it allows, and like I said, it gives the device the correct toys to play with in terms of showcasing what it can do color wise. Which it is a fantastic. I got it on 4K because I was like, I watch this movie maybe once every month or so because it's just a very comfortable, fun horror movie to watch. Phil's creepy vids in here. Hey Phil, you can see Cujo's on. We're watching Cujo, which we're at my favorite part of the movie. So intense. What kind of car is that, by the way? It's
It's a
so ugly.
Pinto.
I like it though, but it's
That is a
ugly.
Pinto.
Did you have one of
Um,
those, Lorne?
I'm afraid the Pinto was a little bit out of production by the time I got my driver's license. The Pinto was infamous, of course, for having a gas tank that was right within touching level of the bumper. So occasionally, someone would bump the back of a Pinto and it'd simply explode.
Guys, look at this dog right here. Look how disgusting he looks. Cujo is a beast. Like I said, guys, it's like as if you're a big guy or even just a guy watching this, it's almost like, oh, I would have, you know. But this is a dainty small woman and a very small child, and this dog is a freaking beast. It's just man, and as a kid, Cujo is the perfect nightmare movie for a young kid. I remember this movie just it mortified me because it was so real. You know, it wasn't Jeff Goldblum walking on the walls as a human fly. It was a freaking monstrous dog.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I'm saying that taking out all the Frank Dodd monster in the closet stuff from the novel is such a good idea for the film because ultimately you put yourself in the situation when you're in this film. Like, what would I do? And there aren't a lot of good answers, and that's real horror,
Right.
you know. And it has that underpinning of thematics that make it relevant to you on a number of levels. It's a powerful little film. It's never going to be called a big film, but for what it is, it does a lot right.
I love it. You know, if I was ever to do another top five Stephen King movies, I think this would crack it at this point after a rewatch of this movie because budget doesn't matter to me. Budget really it never has. I'm assuming it doesn't matter to you, and it's
No,
not your biggest concern for film. It's really just you know how it evokes my emotions, I guess. And man, this movie hits close to home in so many ways.
so I mean, budget is ultimately bullshit because if you look at something like A Quiet Place, it's a $10 million production, but it looks a lot more expensive. Now I don't like the CGI in it, but it looks bigger. So there's no reason horror films need to cost more than $10 million ever, because at that point you're just playing with tools that don't even help your cause. Big digital effects take people out of a movie. Horror films should draw you in closer and closer and closer.
Right.
That's the whole point. So I'm not saying you couldn't do it with really top flight special effects, but you can't afford them and make a movie that's going to be profitable. So, uh, can you put up Crystal Lake 77's question?
Yeah, he says, Lauren, I have a legal question. If I wrote a script and sell it to a studio, I let go of all legal ownership of film and merchandise. I ask because Stallone has no ownership of Rocky. That's crazy. Go ahead.
So every contract is different, and what you negotiate. I believe Stone did not have an agent at the time. He represented himself, and he signed a less than great deal because he wanted to get the film made and be able to star in it. That was his conditions. That's what was important to him. So he signed away a lot of rights that you or I might not in a best situation. Now, to give you an idea, my first book deal, I owned 49% of the media rights to my books while they were in print with that publisher. So, in other words, if a film company had come to my publisher and said, we want to buy the rights to that, they could have said yes, and all I would have gotten was my percentage. I couldn't say no. I couldn't have vetoed it. My current book deal, I own the film rights. I own the all media rights, except for the printed and audio book rights. So I'm in a position now, whereas if a company goes to my publisher, they have to refer them to me. But every contract is different. There's no standard. Now, the question you're really getting at is why doesn't Stallone try and get his copyright to his original screenplay reverted? And I think he's actually probably one of the smarter players about this because he owns the original screenplay. He wrote the original screenplay. He's written films in that series, but he has employed other writers as well. And what those other writers brought to the table, they technically could do the same. And then he would lose elements of the franchise that he likes to use when he makes further installments or license further installments. So it's not to his benefit to actually get the rights back properly. Now it might become to his benefit if they want to do something really, messed up with him. Hey, we're thinking about recasting the film with I don't know, with all people under 4'1". We're going to make a parody film of Rocky. Maybe then he steps out and says, "Wait a second, that's not what this is." But right now he's making money off of it. Everything's comfortable, but just be careful about the contracts you sign, guys. But my big question, though, is like when I was handed my first book contract, was I going to say no? Was I going to play hardball without a track history? No, of course I wasn't. But it just means after you do have sort of a track history, then the next time a contract comes, you have a little bit more, a little bit more bidding power, and you start saying, "Well, I'm looking at this, and I don't know if I like this," and see if they'll move. If they won't,
There you go.
I don't know if
Crystal Lake.
I don't know if you guys heard, but Clive Barker has initiated the process of getting his Hellraiser rights back. He's not even eligible till next year to actually reclaim them. So it's an interesting thing. We'll find out. But you're going to see a lot more of this. A lot more of this.
Yep.
Basically, every big property that whoever has screenplay credit is going to try and take back. Because why wouldn't you?
I don't need any more Hellraisers. I've got the first 3.
Well, you were going to get a film and a television series before this stuff started. So
they can have it. Nocturnal Toothbrush. He says he picked up some arrows. He got the Mutilator, Maniac Cop, Blood Rage, and Edge of the Axe. Out of those right there, Nocturnal, my favorite movie out of all those is Maniac Cop.
I might go with Mutilator just for the point in my life when I saw it first.
Oh, I can believe that. Oh, Phil's in there. He says there are 2 Saint Bernards that scared me as a kid: Cujo and the Neo Citron dog. Do you know what he's talking about, Lorne? Because I don't.
I'm sorry. I was
talking about Phil.
What did Phil say?
He said there were 2 Saint Bernards that scared him as a kid: Cujo and the Neo Citron dog. What is that, Phil?
Oh, Man's Best Friend. The dog from Man's Best Friend
with Lance Hendrickson. Okay.
Robotic dog.
Was that?
I'm not sure that scared me, but.
Was that I guess that was
I think it was
a Saint Bernard in that movie,
yeah.
huh? I know it was a big dog with a chunky face. Nathan, let me show you, Nathan. Now, granted, it's Region B, Nathan, because I just got a Region B player, but this was like the first thing I wanted to get, this Eureka Blu-ray of Cujo, and I love it. God, Dee Wallace talked for an hour in her interview, and she was so forthright. She said that, when it came to the end of the movie, we're basically here, when the kid in the book died, she said, and she didn't read the book, but because she didn't want to have she didn't want to have any comparisons for herself. She wanted to just go in the movie and portray it the way she thought best and the way the director, but yada yada. She said, we can't kill the kid, not after the torment of us being in the car for 2 days and what we have to go through. If we do that to the audience, they'll be disgusted. And the director said that he more or less agreed with Dee. And when they went to Stephen King, Stephen said, no, by all means, change that because I got hate mail left and right from killing the kid, which I thought was interesting, that Stephen King was very okay with changing that.
Well, again, he doesn't remember writing the project, so he probably doesn't have that deep of feelings. But thematically, the kid should die.
Because the parents weren't. They led him to. They led. It's in a sense they metaphorically led him to this situation, which I understand that. I understand
it's a stronger statement. But I don't hate the fact the kid lifts his head out of her arms at the end. I don't hate it. It's fine because the movie does so much right, and it's cool. I just think it's a stronger statement if they go through all this and it still doesn't. Because basically, what you're led to believe is that the marriage and the family survives.
Right, right, right.
And I don't buy that this family is still together after the
Like
events.
like Cujo fixed their problems.
Yeah,
Cujo solved everything.
that's not exactly where I'd
He's
go.
a special dog.
Chris like Counselor 77. So he asks if Cunningham wins the lawsuit and appeal.
Can we save that till when the movie's over? I saw that. Chris Lake, when we get done with the movie, we'll take a few minutes because after this, I'm going to go eat supper with my wife.
Yeah,
but we'll take a few minutes and
I'm making wings on the barbecue tonight, guys. So if you want to come over.
That sounds fantastic. Well, but I do want to talk about Friday the 13th for a few minutes. Sure. Nocturnal Toothbrush, Maniac Cop. I love Maniac Cop. I love 1, 2, and I like all 3 of them, but I think 2 is a little bit better, I guess, technically, although I don't like the word. Nocturnal Toothbrush also says lemon neocitron. What is lemon neocitron? Okay, it's a cold medicine. Thank you. We have a smart chat because I don't know what that is.
I don't know what that is either, so I don't know.
RC 2001, good to see you. Christian, have you seen Near Dark yet? And where would you rank it among your favorite vampire flicks? I loved it. You guys weren't playing. Everybody told me to see Near Dark. I love Near Dark. I liked it probably a little bit more than Vamp, to be honest with you. Because I love Vamp, but Near Dark, I frickin' loved it. I mean, I really loved Near Dark. Definitely going to be a high rewatch movie for me. Definitely. So if Kyle, if you ever see this, because I know you're not here, thank you for sending me that Blu-ray. Very good movie.
Oh, someone just gifted you Near Dark?
Which is the artwork on it looks so bad, but then
the Twilight. You got the Twilight edition.
Exactly.
That's bad.
But it's a great movie. I really enjoy it. I love a really good vampire flick. I mean, I really do. I love werewolves, but sometimes I'm just like I'm a vampire guy. Sometimes I'm just a vampire guy, but and there's a Hammer movie that I really like. It's called. Let me see if I can see it. It's from 65.
65.
Dracula, Prince of Darkness, and I think is that Lee? Is that Christopher Lee? It's a Scream Factory I got, and I loved it. It actually had some pretty tense moments in it, but I thought that was good. I did. I mean, it's late Hammer,
the
so to speak.
Trilogy. You need Twins of Evil. Rocks my world. Oh my god. Twins of Evil, The Vampire Lovers. You need those films. There's also a film that's not part of the Constantine trilogy called The Vampire Circus. You will love, my man. It's okay. Hammer firing on all cylinders is just awesome stuff.
Anilda, she actually said, Christian, I picked up Just Before Dawn and love it. I'm so happy for you. I got Just Before Dawn. If you love it, I am so happy for you. I will never watch that movie again. I thought it was really, really boring. I did. And I don't want to be like that. And I hate saying that. I thought it had some, it was so cheap. It was what's that other slasher movie I got from Scream Factory?
The Forest.
What was that movie called? You know what I'm talking about?
It's like The Forest.
Dang it. I don't want to go over there and look for my movies. It's a gorgeous Blu-ray release though, Anilda, if that's what you got. I found it really a chore to watch.
So one thing I love about this scene in Cujo is they've just progressed the makeup on Dee Wallace, and all they really did is get her sweaty, which was hard because it was a cold day. But they removed all our makeup. She's just completely freaking natural, and it has so powerful compared to how they had her made up throughout the entire film that she just looks totally raw and real.
Right.
It's such a smart decision. No fright makeup, no, stupid. They didn't tease out her hair in all weird directions. They just removed the regular makeup and said, "This is what she'd look like at that moment." It's so good.
Yeah. And she flips a switch in a moment here when she realizes the kid is wearing thin or basically died, almost dead,
dehydrating.
Yeah, and she's like, "No, I'm either gonna die saving my kid, or this dog's finally gonna meet his demise." I'm trying to think in this situation what I would have done. Like, what alternatives would there have been for them to do to get away? If you got a car that's not starting, You've got this rabid dog who is just like a shark in the water circling their boat. You
So
know,
what you need to do is always make sure somewhere in your car you have a weapon.
right? Which I do.
Absolutely.
That's about as specific as I'll get with that too. But I have,
Correct.
I'm protected when I'm in my vehicle. Oh crap! She look at this guy. She just accidentally got the door off. No, she got the door open. Excuse me. The door hasn't come off yet. I know that in some of the scenes, when the dog lunges or comes through something, it's an actual guy, a stunt guy, who actually has a big puppet dog dog head on, which you have to freeze frame the movie to see any of it. But you know, it fooled me. I thought the whole movie was just a big bad son of a gun, you know, the whole time. Let's see. Somebody asked. Oh, Crystal Lake asked. Lost Boys or Fright Night. You know, my wife loves Lost Boys. She would say Lost Boys, but I'm a Fright Night guy.
I'm not a fan of either of them, but I go with Fright Night over.
Yeah, I can't see you being a Lost Boys fan.
No. Now,
Christian, have you? Go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry,
I,
Lorne.
she has like inch and a half heels on these shoes. That's what I'd have in my hand as a weapon.
That's true, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking she could take a shirt off, take her top off too, try to get it around the dog's neck and just choke him out. But you got to get behind him first. I mean, Cujo don't play around, y'all.
So this is like an under the bed shot.
Right. Oh my God! If you guys are you guys seeing this on my TV? Look at this sucker. Here we go. Ooh! Look at the kid. They got the bags under his eyes and everything. Oh, he's awake now.
So a self-defense tip, guys. Your thumb is your strongest finger. If you take your thumb and move it into the soft palate of anything with a mouth, it will back off you immediately because it's excruciating and you can block its windpipe.
Man, this poor kid. Look at this. The dog's in a car now. Jesus Christ. You know, I'm really not a big fan of like those quick kind of shots where you can't really tell what's going on. But I mean, I don't really know other way to really maneuver a scene like this, and I'm fine with it. But just so intense. Good God. Oh, you got a hold of her leg now. Sucker's biting down. Poor D.
So, Christian, you still feeling like no one should hurt the dog?
No, that's well. In the one scene, I was like, Cujo, if he's pulling a gun on you, at that point, just get him. But no, when we get to the point with D, I'm 100%. I swapped. I'm back on track because, you know, D. Of course, I don't want nothing to happen to her. And the kid, you know, I thought they used the kid right in this movie. They didn't feature him too much, you know, because you could tell the kids. I don't think he won a Golden Globe in his life ever after this or anything. I thought they featured the kid properly. You know,
Did a lot of television work. He's still working in television.
well, good, very good. I mean, of
Actually, the
course, I'm
father
glad to
is
hear.
as well.
Excellent.
Daniel Kelly, the father, is still working in television as well. So
This scene always tripped me out. What was the point of that? The rotation thing? I never. I'm trying to. What was the metaphor of that? Because I don't understand it.
just an interesting transition between scenes, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I did when I was watching. I was like, what is the director? What was his motive right there? Like, what was he thinking? Was he on the cocaine too with King? Maybe. Let's make the camera spin around. What we got going on in the chat? I saw somebody talking about Fright Night was great. Salem's Lot was amazing as well. I like Salem's Lot. Rush he says thank you for the self-defense lesson. Crystal Lake says the Howling or Silver Bullet. Howling. I mean, for me, the Howling is the creme de la creme of 80s werewolf movies. Silver Bullet, I think, is pretty freaking good. You know, I don't think it's. You know, I can't put it on level with the Howling. I love the Howling.
I love the Howling as well.
And that's D.
It's a good thing they never made any sequels to that thing.
What the heck? I have never seen a sequel run anything quite like The Howling. I mean, that truly is. There needs to be a documentary about this. What happened? Like, what happened with the Howling sequels? Like, how did they go from this one film to exhibitionist sequels? No werewolves in the movies, calling it the Howling. Like, how did this happen? I want to know. I
A,
really want
a
to know.
remake of The Beast What Can't Die without actually, paying for the rights. Yeah. Oh yeah. No, it's a mess. But Gary Brandner got paid every time, so he was okay with it.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, we got Heartbreaker in here. How you doing, buddy? He says
Hey,
Alice in
Heartbreaker.
Alice in Wonderland. He was really upset, Lauren, that he couldn't be on last night. He said once his internet, he's moving. Once his internet gets situated,
Well, don't bring that internet with you, sir. Get
the
new.
HughesNet hashtag HughesNet. Oh man. Adam says the Howling rules. Have I seen Dog Soldiers, Anelda? I'm sure both me and Lauren have seen Dog Soldiers. I think that is an exceptional werewolf film as well. I love Dog Soldiers. Do you like that one, Lauren?
Absolutely.
Good. Yeah, I think that's a great one. Didn't expect to like it. I don't know why. I was just like, Dog Soldiers. It's a weird name, and I was like, wow, this movie freaking rules. So I mean, it's always good. Better transformation scene: Howling or an American Werewolf in London. I mean, Rick Baker is Rick Baker. I don't see movie wise Howling, but that scene, I love that scene in American Werewolf in London. I mean, I think it's a masterclass of special effects at the time.
No,
Lauren?
it absolutely is. The problem is it looks like a special effects reel. It feels like the movie comes to a grinding halt just to show off what they could do. Whereas in The Howling, it's all in scene and the tension doesn't let up.
Right.
Yeah, The Howling is simply a better made film. Um, American Werewolf has a lot going for it. And I'm not going to tear it apart, but if you're going to put them up against each other, I will come out Team Howling every day of the week.
Yeah, we don't need to go. We've talked multiple times about one John Landis. So I mean, we don't need to go there, but
No.
we know that he probably should have spent some time behind bars. I'll just say that especially after seeing that unfortunate episode on Shudder of the cursed films, that was horrible.
I'm glad
I'm
that's
not.
out there, though.
Yeah.
I'm really glad that's out there because for how long was I screaming to people and no one gave a crap? And now people at least have a benchmark.
I also think a lot of people didn't know, man. I mean, somehow that was that. If you wouldn't have told me that, I wouldn't. That would have been my first time hearing of it, and I don't live under a rock. So I think somehow that story just got buried a little. Not necessarily buried, but I don't know what. But there must have been other scandals going on, or Landis just he Men in Blacked everybody with them light deals because dude, I never heard of it ever. So I think
Okay, so
it should
now
come to light big time.
I'm going to get all grim here for a moment. There's a way she can solve this problem, but it sucks. Okay. First of all, urine is drinkable and it would cure the dehydration. B,
Uh huh.
blood is drinkable and would cure dehydration. It comes with other problems, but we'll deal with those down the road. The truth is, like, there are ugly answers to a relatively horrible situation.
I'll just put this up here as well, just for a few seconds.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to do that, but since you asked, Metropolis, good to see you, Metropolis. You've been a subscriber to me for years, man. It's good to see you. Your thoughts on the H5 Brute mask? Wasn't that like the mask that he puts on when he picks up the girl to go to the party where she's like, I want to get some cigarettes? Wasn't that mask the guy Michael puts on? It's like a
Right.
guy, like the German
It's a,
guy. I
it's a
thought that was
caveman
like
mask.
that's a pretty cool. I like that mask. It's pretty cool. I thought it worked in that scene. I like H5. I know Lauren
I
likes
love,
H5. Um, yeah. So I'm cool. I'm cool with the brute with the brute mask. And Nilda, if you have Shutter, please go to Cursed Films. What I really liked about it was they made everybody shut up about Poltergeist, calling it a cursed film when it's clearly not. You
no.
know, but check that out, Anelda. Shutter, Cursed Films, the finale episode, because it doesn't get no more crazy than than the Twilight Zone movie. You want to know an uglier way out? Use the kid as a dog treat as you run away.
Well,
That
there's
would have been a
that.
grim ending. That would have been a grim ending. Lauren, assuming their theaters are open in October, will you see Halloween Kills or wait for Blu-ray release?
I absolutely am going to go see it. I actually intend to make it a deal that if people want to show up at the theater, I'll with me, we'll watch it together. So if anyone is in the greater tri-state area, I
Lauren,
already have one taker.
let me ask you something, Lauren, because I believe there may be somewhat of a misconception about you with this. You know, I know you know some people that are relatively on the inside, and we're not going to get into that because it's not our business what you know about the film. But I feel there may be a misconception that you want the film to be bad because you come across as pretty hard in your descriptions of what you think the movie's going to be. You don't want the movie to be bad. You'd love to go
No,
enjoy Halloween Kills, right?
I would love to, and I think I'm going to enjoy some of the movie quite a lot. And I think it's going to be what how a lot of people feel. I think a lot of people at the end of the day are going to say, "Hey, that second act I loved. That was
Right.
amazing." Because that's the big violent, gory set piece that you keep hearing about. But there's a
And that's not
lot.
news, everybody.
No,
It's all over the internet. So
no.
it's supposed to be violent, the most violent Halloween ever.
But I mean, there's certain things I just want. I feel like a lot of people were very built up for Halloween 2018,
Uh
and they
huh.
had a great experience with it in theaters, which I won't take away from anyone. I did not, but but on reflection, a lot of people have come down in their estimation of the film. Well, I think that the hype won't be there this time to have kind of those rose tinted glasses. So I just want everyone to please moderate your expectations. This is going to be a film that you're going to like some of, you're probably going to hate some of. Um, the ending is the ending. I will say that. Some people are going to love it, some people are going to hate it. Um, if you want a film with a lot of Jamie Lee Curtis in it, you may be disappointed. Um, but I think that there's this big tendency for everyone to talk about it like it's going to be this awesome best in the franchise film, and what I know of it, that's pretty much an impossibility.
Yeah. My thing was we're hearing stories about what do you call it when they get they make computers. They did it with Princess Leia, I think, in one of
Deep
in the
fake.
new.
They're doing a deep fake face replacement for the actor playing Dr. Loomis.
I don't see the need to do that because you've established Halloween 2018 as this this forward story film in a sense. We're why are we going back? Because all
Because
we're gonna do is try to
they're
go ahead.
they're attempting to give a minor character from 2018 a actual story arc by inserting a scene that takes place after the original Halloween. I will warn you, that's going to be probably the cringiest thing in the movie. There's going to be a lot of things that are going to be that aren't going to work. That I
Yeah.
fully expect that scene to be a complete disaster.
Yeah. Lauren, I feel I can speak for a lot of Halloween fans on this. I think a lot of the Halloween fans, I think there's a lot of them that enjoyed Halloween 2018, but the big thing that bugged them was the doctor who stabbed the policeman. A lot of people that was like,
It's
for the
reshoots.
most part, they were on board and everything was fine. They understood the movie in a sense was a little silly with the way Jamie was just living this life and not necessarily I guess retcon is the word, just changing history, so to speak. They get that they're on this ride, but a lot of people said when the doctor does the stabbing in the neck, that was a bucket of cold water, and I'm there. I'm there with that.
Oh,
It was just
it's an awful scene, but that's reshoots because the old ending didn't match up to the rest of the film that they had to retool, so they needed a bridge, and they used the Sartain character as that bridge.
yeah,
It still doesn't make sense, by the way, because Michael still shows up at the house before the girl he's chasing, which makes no sense. But it's my biggest problem with the movie. I'll be honest with you, is that the Laurie Strode character that I love from the original and part two is not in that film. If you buy that Laurie Strode spent her entire life arming up to protect her family and becoming a survivalist, the first thing that character does is move out of town.
That's what I would do.
There's no way around the fact that her still being in Haddonfield invalidates her entire character. And that's just not the smart, resourceful Laurie Strode from the first two films. Even drugged out of her mind, she was smarter than that. So right from the beginning, we have a problem. Then we have characters introduced just to give exposition to show us where we are. And then we just off those characters meaninglessly, which I suppose is supposed to be shocking. But since it was just a reshot version of the scene from from Halloween 7, no one cares because we've seen it.
Right.
There's just so many ways I think the movie just didn't fulfill the promise. But it was the first major like legacy slasher on screen in a long time, so people got very excited. And I'm not telling you if you love the film, I'm not telling you you're wrong. I'm just saying from my point of view,
Right.
it's a deeply problematic film.
Yeah, it definitely settled for me. The honeymoon period, once it wore off. Whenever I have the desire to watch Halloween, that's not the one I'm typically going to. I typically go to 4 or I go to 2. I try not to watch 1 a lot because it's fun to watch 1. I always try to make it some kind of special thing, you know. But I typically go to 4 or 2 or 5. I don't find myself going back to watch 2018 that often. Um, but I'm optimistic. I hope I hope what's it called? Halloween Kills. I still think Halloween Returns would have been a much better name, and I know that it was gonna happen as a movie, but that fell by the wayside. I just don't understand Halloween Kills. Halloween Returns sounds so much better to me. I don't know why they couldn't still use that name.
Well,
You know.
the season isn't actually going to kill anyone in the movie, so yeah, you're right.
Let's see. Somebody had a funny question, or not funny, just like. Let's see. Oh, Crystal Lake said, "What should Halloween 2018 been called?" I don't know what else you call it. It's a, you can call it this, you could call it this, that. At the end of the day, it's just like a whatever. It's starting over, so that's why it's just called Halloween. I don't know what else you would call it besides Halloween, because the movie, like I said this in the Firefly show, that movie was not made for you as a hardcore horror fan. That movie was made for people who just, oh, that's Michael. Oh, I remember Michael Myers. Everybody talks about him. Let's go see it. It's made for people. It's made for the world to go see the movie, not hardcore horror fans. And there's a reason it
Halloween.
doesn't take place after Resurrection, because nobody wants to make that movie. In
I wouldn't want
business,
to make
nobody
that
wants to
movie
make that
either.
movie. What the hell
Halloween
would you do?
Reunion would be my title. Halloween Reunion.
I mean, that's a cool title. But I think somebody said it. It might have been you before, Lauren. Like when you put any kind of connotation title like that at the end of it, you're going to cut out a certain percentage of moviegoers because they're going to say, "Well, I haven't seen the previous one. Maybe I forgot about that, or maybe I missed it." You know what I mean? Like so.
Oh yeah, no.
Yeah.
The later sequels always have a problem. If you put a number, then people feel like they have to have seen everything that came before it, and if they haven't, they don't go. If you give it a subtitle, the problem is continuity becomes questionable. Like where does this fit in the series? So it's always tough. There's a million reasons we just got to let these characters and franchises go, but they're too confusing. They're retconning certain pieces. Some things happened, some things didn't happen. I don't know if anyone thinks it's worth it anymore. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, Heartbreaker, I'm gonna give the edited version of this comment. The movie is unnecessary and should not have been made. I don't know why people want more movies. You already have an F ton. Stop being greedy for one effing minute. Heartbreaker, I'm not gonna disagree with you. We do have a lot of Halloweens. I mean, I know you're being silly, but honestly, I have a box set that takes up a good bit of real estate on a shelf. You're not necessarily wrong. I'm not really worried about getting another Friday the 13th movie. I'm really not. I think the Santy's doing good enough for me to see, Jason on screen with what he's doing. And I just don't want the property stuff to go away. When Halloween hits, I want to always see Voorhees stuff on the shelf. I want to be able to always get a new Jason T-shirt when I go to Spencer's. I don't. That's what's most important to me Now, I don't know what this lawsuit really does with that. We'll get into that in a little while. But what I'm getting at is, I have enough Friday the 13th. I mean, Jesus Christ, they almost made one every year in the 80s. Think about that. Almost every year. What years were missing, Lorne? Was it just 83?
83 and 88, right?
87. I think New Blood
87.
was 88. I
Yeah,
mean,
you're right.
2
You're right.
years out of the decade. 2 years. Think about that. It's like, Jesus. And then you think that would be it. But no, there's more in the 90s. They did Jason Goes to Hell. And then 2 in the 2000s. It's just like, we have enough at a certain point, But Heartbreaker says he's not trying to be silly. Okay, well, fair
No,
enough.
I think Heartbreaker. I think it was a really, really poignant comment. It was strong too, because too many people want to live simply in nostalgia and nothing else. And
Right.
I wonder where you'll feel if you're one of those guys that right now is just 80s, 80s, 80s all the time. And yes, we're watching an 80s movie, so it sounds like a little bit of hypocrisy. But if you're living in the 80s all the time, how many decades are you going to live in the 80s? Is there going to be a point where it's just enough, or you're tired, or you've seen everything good a million times? I just start celebrating the 70s, start celebrating the 60s. The 50s are a bit rough, I'll be honest with you, but the 40s and 30s have great stuff too. And you know what? 2000s, 2010s, and today have good stuff too. You just have to search in different places for them.
Yeah. Speaking of, in We Summon the Darkness, I really, really like that, guys. If you haven't seen it, I thought that
God,
was a
it's
fun.
so good.
Guys, like I always say, I say this. I don't think Lauren would disagree. I mean, that movie was clearly, not a huge budgeted, thing. It was a really. I have this saying, right? When because it's, not everything is The Shining, right? You know what I mean? There's nothing wrong with pretty good horror movies, and I thought We Summon the Darkness was a really pretty good horror movie. Now, I can use that as an insult or a compliment. In this case, I mean it as a compliment. I thought We Summon the Darkness was entertaining, fun. It didn't take itself too seriously, and had good-looking women in it. So I mean, and Johnny Knoxville was so freaking awesome. I loved seeing him in that movie. I thought that was so
Dude,
cool. I hope he does more stuff like that.
Amy Forsyth using an outboard boat motor as a weapon.
Fantastic.
Life pretty much doesn't get better than that moment.
Yeah.
It's a sadly small film, but I think for what it is, it just shoots on all cylinders the whole time. It's great for what it is. It just had a small ambition. It wanted to tell a small story. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. I don't know what you call this category of films, but I put these in the same bucket. I guess you could call them independent, well-made films. We Summon the Darkness, Satanic Panic, VFW, movies like that just they're these homegrown horror movies from the people who clearly like the genre of horror. And sometimes you get these actors that were one time really big, and now they're not necessarily working class, but they're like additives for this movie. So I think VFW had Norm from Cheers in it. But some of these movies, like, I just love these movies because I know that I'm going to get a very individualistic movie. I'm not going to get something that's retreaded. And I can say that for VFW, We Summon the Darkness, and Satanic Panic. I mean, they all felt very individualistic. And I love that. I love when these movies come out and I can see them. And they're very fun to me.
Yeah. Listen, and I don't want to seem doom and gloom about all modern mainstream stuff. Ready or Not is a film that I find endlessly rewatchable. I just love the film.
Yeah, I
Samara
do like that
Weaving
one.
is the new is really occupying that space where Kurt Russell occupied in the 80s, in that she's now the kick-ass character actor. And
Yeah.
I love her. I mean, whether you saw her in Mayhem, whether you saw her in Ready or Not, she's just awesome. She's awesome.
Joe Bob Tar Heel, that I can't understand that comment. This is better than Orc. I'll let you read it from there. Oh man, but that was Cujo, guys. A classic Stephen King adaptation with a great Dee Wallace in it. One of my favorites.
Absolutely.
I'll announce this real quick, guys. I'm this close. Like, I'm literally 3 or 4 videos away. Maybe more. Maybe I know it's within 10. of my 1000th video, my 1000th video on YouTube. And I want it to be a party. I want to do Return of the Living Dead live commentary. I want to do it on my channel. I want to bring my friends on the show. So obviously, Lorne, I know you'd be definitely somebody I want to have because I know
Thank
it's going to
you.
be like a Firefly kind of like special edition thing. So I'll be making an announcement about when that is soon. I'm gonna talk to the people I want involved with it, and set that up. But guys, that's gonna be so fun doing Return to Living Dead. So that'll be soon, very soon. And I also, um, no, I'll save it. That's all the information I'll give now. I don't want to spoil everything right now, but so we got a few minutes, guys. We'll go till it's 7:17 now. We'll go about 5 or 6 more minutes. Let's get the Friday the 13th out there, Lauren. Talk about. Do you remember? Do you remember? Crystal Lake's question he asked about the lawsuit.
He
What was it
asked
in
if
terms of
if
movies?
Cunningham won the suit, and meaning the appeal, because he lost the suit. But if he wins the appeal, does he get to make a film using Mrs. Voorhees, Adult Jason, anything he wants from the series? And the answer to that is a little bit complex. If he wins the appeal, what that will mean is we are back to the point whereas the earlier judgment has been stayed. And the earlier judgment was that Miller had the right to take back his rights to his original screenplay. So where does that leave us? If that ruling never happened, basically Miller is in a position then where he legally doesn't own his property, but has a right to appeal the appeal. But he would have to go to the Supreme Court, which is the last place left on the circuit map for copyright claims. And at that point, the Supreme Court will not take the case. And I can go into why, but you probably don't care. Just know that they won't take the case. So the big problem with all that is it's not going to happen. Unless Cunningham entered something into evidence in this newest round that I'm unaware of, they made basically the same argument they made for the actual lawsuit. There was no new tertiary evidence that would push a different finding. And the court that is seeing the case, Mr. Underwood, Stephen Underwood, is the presiding judge. He is a Clinton appointee who has routinely come out on the side of rights creators and the arts rather than the corporations. I just
Right.
don't see the art, the stars aligning in any way that Cunningham's going to win. Now, Cunningham has said in interviews that he may consider just starting production on a new Friday the 13th film using whatever the hell he wants and just distribute it only outside of America. And the interesting thing there is he has the right to do that, which means we would not see a legal release of Friday the 13th Part 13 in America. And maybe as an unlucky number, that makes some sense thematically. But, of course, the internet being what it is and, international mail being what it is, you would eventually be able to see it, but we miss out on the theatrical experience, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But keep in mind, I say this every time, and I feel like I get through to some people every time, so I'm going to continue. Miller does not own the movie Friday the 13th. He never will. What he owns is his original screenplay and all the intellectual property contained therein, meaning new products can't be created using those elements. So Mrs. Voorhees cannot be in a film unless he licenses the character or uses the character himself. The original Friday the 13th is not going anywhere. The franchise is not going anywhere.
Let me
It's
stop you
not
right
like
there. Let me
yeah,
stop you right there. Well, what about Friday? What about Camp Crystal Lake? Wasn't that in his
it's just
script?
that is.
That's a
That's
problem.
his. It is a problem. It's probably the biggest problem of the whole thing, to be honest.
Right.
But and that creates a situation because the problem is people say, well, don't use the name in the film. But if you show a lake in the film, he can make the argument that by association, that is clearly Crystal Lake that's being portrayed, even though it's not named, and he'll be legally right. So what it comes down to is the hurdle is for future American films after Miller wins the appeal. is that they will probably have to change the setting entirely and never refer back to Camp Crystal Lake or Pamela Voorhees. Well, actually, the name Pamela might be safe, but Mrs. Voorhees is not. And because Pamela was a reference to Mrs. Voorhees, probably not.
That's gonna piss a lot of fans off.
So we
If
might be
they try to
seeing
do
not just a
something about all
reboot,
that.
but a reboot that re-envisions the entire thing. Will Jason,
Stupid.
the hulking madman in a hockey mask, be back? I guarantee that's going to happen. Will all his surroundings that we're used to be back? Here's how that happens. Here's the optimistic view. We're talking about two guys in their late 70s by the time this is all resolved. They're probably not going to be terribly hands-on with whatever comes next day there. They're both looking to be able to license the property. Someone comes along and figures out a way to make a lot of money and turns to them and says, I want to license it, and here will be your cut of the product. Someone could license from both gentlemen and have all the iconic stuff from the films that Cunningham owns and all of the intellectual properties that Miller owns and still make a proper Friday the 13th Part 13 using all the elements. So there's two ways it happens. Overseas only or with a licensing agreement from both gentlemen in the States. Problem with the second choice is it's starting to get more expensive than they like to spend on a Friday the 13th film. Because even though like the remake, you sit there and say, it made $80 million domestically on a $14 million budget. What's the problem? That's great. It's wonderful. But that happens how often in this franchise? How many times do we get, Jason X numbers or New Blood numbers or even Jason Lives numbers, which look them up. Jason Lives released today would have lost money.
Yeah, Freddy was. I always say this as a joke. Freddy was destroying Jason in the late '80s, box office
Absolutely.
wise. That's what the people.
I expect
wanted.
we're going to.
He was fresher.
I expect we're going to hear about the resolution of the appeal very, very, very shortly, and expect to hear that Miller has won the appeal. And we'll go from there.
Let me ask you this real quick before we go, because I haven't seen this ash yet or really been talked about. So maybe there is no effect. What effect has COVID had on the judicial process with this?
So, when oral arguments happen in a case like this, basically what the lawyer is doing is reading the evidence that they've already submitted in paper form or multimedia form. And he's just outlining what it means. He's giving context to the documents. That's why they had 40 minutes a pop, because that's all they were doing. It was no Perry Mason dramatics going on. And then what happens is court clerks go over all the documents, all of them, with a fine-tooth comb, and they're looking at precedent. They're looking at similar lawsuits. And it was the job of the lawyers, of course, to point out which lawsuits they should look at. But a lot of times clerks will also go beyond that and look at, cases that are similar enough. And then the clerks will write briefs to the judge. The judge will read those briefs and use his own expertise in the law to come to a consensus decision. This is not a jury suit. So he'll look at it and see, what does the law say? How does it apply to this case? The precedents and all that will have been worked out by the clerks. And then he will make the determination. Now, all that work can be done from home. Unfortunately, I'm not in Connecticut. I can't tell you whether those guys were working 4 hours from home a day or 8 hours at home for a day. But there's been a lot of hints from the court that a class of rulings is coming down very shortly, and this would fall into that. So I expect shortly. But again, it's not going to be good news. So.
And real quick, Joe Bob says, with the lawsuit still going on, if one of them pass, will excuse me, oh my God, will this still lawsuit go on if one or both of them pass away, Lorne? I'm curious. I think if one of them passes away, personally, that would actually be worse.
Well, then you have estates. You have estates getting involved,
right? And they're not going to want to deal with that right then, because they're dealing with the loss of a family member, and
Well, let me just throw a wrench into the whole thing too. We talk about Miller, we talk about Cunningham, but we really shouldn't, because there's much larger corporations behind both men.
Oh yeah,
that's where the money to pay the lawyers and the court fees has really come from. Now we know where Cunningham's money is coming from. Horror Inc. has distribution deals, so we
Yeah.
know who has money and who has flesh in the game from his side. We really haven't been told who Miller is backed by. I've heard some pretty convincing rumors, but and you can make your own guesses. I'm not going to say what I think is the truth there, but these are corporations fighting. These aren't really two guys fighting.
Yeah. And I think once this is over, we'll have a better idea of that. So,
But make no mistake, you will see another Friday the 13th in your life. And I say that with a sigh because I think the easy solution to this is that we all just move on to other things.
yeah. Well, of course. But people, they're not going to listen to you, though, Lauren. You know that these people, they love that. They love their slashers. They love them. I'm
Right, but
guilty, but I also try to
let's
enjoy other things.
let's get some new slashers in there that are doing the job just as well. And I'm wearing
I
the shirt
agree.
of one of them.
Yeah,
So
Game Over is a great film.
just let's get
So
on to
guys, let me
things.
say this. I'd love to have Lauren come back and we do another movie. What I really think you guys would also love too, and I'll get with him soon and talk about it. Is just a shoot in the breeze kind of video where we just basically get off on tangents on what you guys say, which is basically what we do with commentaries. But in a more open forum, we can really concentrate on that kind of stuff. But I'm sure Lauren would love to come back. I'd love to have him back, and we have just let it rip kind of thing. But I do thank everybody that stopped by, especially those who are watching Cujo with us. It's one of my favorite King movies. And Lauren, I'll let you end the stream. Whatever you want to say to the people before we wrap up.
Yeah, so what I find inspiring about a film like Cujo isn't the time period it was released, the decade, what else the director has done, what the actress was, or what her method was to get into the headspace. None of that really matters to me. I connect with films on an emotional level, which is funny because I always talk about films kind of more from the brain than the heart. But
Uh
in
huh.
the reality, I really love films because they make me feel something. And Cujo makes me feel something. I feel what that horrible situation where I've screwed up my life and now I'm in a old Pinto outside a mechanic's house with a dog and outside the car and my kids dehydrating to death. That I feel something when I watch that. And I'm always going to celebrate those films that lead me with my heart. And what I'm going to offer to you guys as a suggestion, a piece of advice that's worth exactly what you're paying for this stream, is next time you watch a film, let yourself go. Just let yourself go. Let the movie take you where it's going to take you, and let it succeed or fail on its own means. I'm not saying love everything because I'm not a guy who does, but let's just put all the bull crap that we use too often to decide what our favorite movies are, or least favorite. What made you feel? What put you in a place that you enjoyed being? What let you explore emotions that would be dangerous in real life? Sometimes it's okay to just have a great time with a movie because it made you feel a certain way, and stop with all the other noise about what a film means or what is it politically correct? Is it this? Oh, I love films from the 70s because they do that. Or don't worry about any of that stuff. Just give yourself a couple days to just enjoy movies for the very, very personal thrill, that connection between the film and you. And that's it. And that's all I have today.
I couldn't say it any better, guys. It's really that simple. I mean, I'm not as eloquent as Lorne with speaking, but yeah, I'm the same way with Cujo. That's a movie to me where it's so much emotion gets pulled out of me, and that's why I wanted to do this film. And I know that he loved it. And it's funny because a lot of people seem to get bored by the movie, and I'm not gonna argue with that. Like I said, that's fair. But sometimes movies can connect people, and I know it connected me and Lauren that one night when we were the lone wolves picking Cujo, and I never forgot that. So I thought, you know what, I need to bring Lauren on when I do Cujo. So, and here we are, old fashioned. I just see you showed up, but we're just wrapping it up. But guys, so once again, I know me and Lauren we're getting hungry. Lauren's going to fire. Are you going to fire up the pit, Lauren? Make some wings. Is that what you said you were doing?
I'm barbecuing some wings tonight, sir.
All right, sounds good. I don't know what we're doing. I gotta go see what the wife, the boss man, says about dinner tonight. So it's
I'm
been
not sure
fun,
she's
Lauren.
gonna appreciate being called boss man.
Oh, she's not listening to this anyway. she she's lived with me for years. She's over my YouTube stuff. She don't mind it. She likes that I do it, but she doesn't watch it. The thrill is gone of seeing her husband on camera. So I love you guys. Thank you for hanging out. If you watched Cujo with us, I appreciate it. But this is Christian Hannah Horror and Lauren from Visited by Voices One saying, have a great day.